Staff and public are attending remotely as well as on site, and all participants that are on phone, please mute your phones to avoid background noise. During the meeting, make sure you announce yourself by name and title when you speak so the public that's observing knows who's speaking. And when speaking, be sure and speak directly into a microphone so that all comments are heard and the record of the meeting is accurate. This is critical given the number of remote participants, and it's also guidance from our Kansas Attorney General. The public's allowed to participate by Zoom or submit comments by email prior to the meeting, and those are included in the record of our meeting. Public may also indicate their intent to provide remote public comment by contacting our clerk's office by 5 p.m. the Thursday prior to the meeting. The public also has an opportunity to provide brief comments either by phone or Zoom from our 5th floor conference room here in the municipal office building. I will now call the February 13, 2023 meeting of Public Works and Safety Standing Committee to order and ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good evening. Roll call. Groneman.
Present.
Kane.
Present.
Markley.
Here.
Here.
Johnson. Commissioner Ramirez has an absence memo as well. Commissioner Bynum.
Here. Do we have revisions on our agenda?
Commissioner, we actually do. There was an item added for the approval of standing committee meetings from the November 14, 2022 meeting. We also had a new item added we'll be handling here soon, but that was it for tonight.
Okay, thank you very much. We do have approval of November 2022 minutes.
Markley, move to approve.
We've got a motion and a second for approval. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Groneman.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Johnson. Bynum.
Aye.
4-0, that motion carries.
Thank you very much. The minutes are approved. And our first item tonight is a presentation on our biosolids assessment. And we have Nancy Zilke here. And I will turn it over to Miss Nancy Zilke, who has done an assessment of the project. And I believe it's for information only, but I will turn it over to you to bring us the presentation.
Okay. Thanks, Commissioner, and good evening, Commissioners. Those of you here, as well as those of you who are on the phone call this evening as well. I am not going to go through every 53 pages of this, but in talking with Commissioner Bynum last week, as well as Commissioner Burrows, I thought it'd be important to also brief this committee kind of where we're at, what the purpose of the assessment is, and can give you kind of the Reader's Digest version of the assessment. Work's still underway. Our goal is to hopefully wrap this work up this week, but we're still missing some key items, specifically being able to do a deeper dive on the revenue assumptions for the biosolids, as well as one of the key factors, a return on investment analysis. And both of those are kind of tied together. So again, that kind of remains our work. But as shown on, okay. Clark, can you guys help? Okay. That's what, just real quick as we're calling the presentation up, the county administrator had asked for us to complete a project assessment of the biosolids project. That I know you've had several commission meetings on the project itself, but in talking initially with Commissioner Bynum and as well as Burrows, as well as the mayor, there's concern as it related to facts. And what we tried to do in this assessment is to lay out for the commission some of the facts related to the project, specifically as it relates to, how much has been spent. So what's the investment that the county has made to date? Also to provide understanding of the timeline, understanding of the partners involved, meaning the various consulting firms in the project. Also then provide some explanation of how the project initially went from, where it was in 2012 to where it is at today, kind of so a chronological kind of history of why the project has seen its increases. And like I said, finally, we're going to be talking about a return on investment analysis. We've identified some preliminary recommendations to the commission as well. Like I said a few minutes ago, we're still in the process, and those, we'll be making additional refinements as well. So as I said, the report itself talks about, what's the investment to date, timelines and key milestones. Again, giving you that construction analysis. Again, why have you seen the increases in the project costs, future operating costs? Again, once the facility is up and running, what's the anticipated costs, the impact of the project as it relates to rates, return on investment, and alternatives. So throughout the project, we visited with 12 individuals. Some individuals just provided information, specifically in the case of Kevin Bibbs, as well as through the clerk's office, resourceful in giving us copies of contracts and invoices. The other individuals, we spent significant amount of time, talking about and understanding the biosolids. So in the report itself is a very more detailed, timeline. But basically, the project went back to 2012. Almost 11 years ago, when Black & Veatch initially presented the Biosolids master plan. From that, then the commission made the decision to move forward with a design build concept. Then with that, the decision was made to then hire HDR to basically be your owner's rep, or basically your project manager, to oversee the as I would call, a very complex project. You hired then Energy Systems Group, who was initially hired in 2018. They were dismissed from the project in 2018, and then the Unified Government entered into a contract with UG Water Partners, which is a consortium owned primarily by Burns and McDonnell, as well as Cass Construction, along with other individuals. For the sake of time, I'm not going to go through, line by line of the timetable, but I think this is for the commission's benefit. As you receive the report, you can kind of see specifically the specific milestones and activity, that has occurred. Investments to date. So this was a snapshot as of the end of December. To date, first I want to talk about monies. Unified Government has issued bonds in 2021, a little bit over $4 million, as well as you have about $4 million in tempering notes outstanding. So total cash in the city treasury of $8.2 million in actual project cash to date. So then secondly, we took a look at the spending. So as of the end of December, there was $4.3 million in actual construction related, I want to say construction, engineering and planning spend that has occurred. As you can see, some of this goes back to 2019, which related to the preliminary concept plans, as well as some of the preliminary engineering work that has been made. Black & Veatch, $82,000, $52,000 for Burns and McDonnell for some work that completed in 21. Energy Systems Group, again, your first, design build contractor, $2.1 million. HDR, your owner's rep, $757,000. Springstead your financial advisor, did some preliminary work as it related to looking at some rate analysis that was done. And then finally, UG Water Partners, almost 1.3 million for a total, again, of 4.3. Like I said, this was as of December 31st. I have not pulled invoices for the month of January. Specifically, when we looked at the expenditures, we did find, we first looked to make sure that invoices were matching what was in your financial system, and we were able to do a reconciliation. But however, we did find in some cases invoices did not match the contract values, meaning if there was a rate for like a principal or a rate for like an engineering technician, they were not matching. So we found 4 instances where invoices were paid where they did not match the amounts in the specific contract, amounts. Secondly, we also had some difficulty in seeing where statement of work, in many cases like Black & Veatch and Burns and McDonnell, staff's using on-call engineering service contracts. we did receive the kind of the updated amendments to those, but in many cases, the county administrator did not actually execute the statement of work related to those on-call services. And then secondly, we do understand that there's a contract clearance review process that does require any contracts over $50,000, a change order, or 10% requires kind of a review process. So we did see that did occur in those instances. But again, what we had cited was the fact that anything under 50,000, we did not see where the administrator had signed those. These tables, again, they're really hard to read, but we just tried to lay out for the commission kind of the purpose of each of the consulting contracts, what the terms are, as well as any specific amendments. As you can see here, there were the on-call services. There were recent amendments. In fact, we just received those this afternoon. That takes the on-call, through the end of this year. I provided. Let's see. I got to go back. For the commission, we provided kind of a better detailed understanding of UG Water Partners that basically identifies not only Burns and McDonald as well as CAS construction contractors, but we also were able to then identify a lot of the other network of firms that are also involved with the UG Water Partners. We thought it'd be important so the commission had a full understanding of the various firms involved. In fact, I think there's a total of about 8 or 9 different companies involved in UG Water Partners. This is going into more detail as it relates to the findings we found where invoices were not matching. So work completed to date. So, first of all, Public Works staff was very cooperative in meeting with us and providing us information. So when we went through the invoices, in most cases, the invoice did always recognize or did communicate the work that was completed for that period. Additionally, Trenton and Jeff met with us as well to identify the work. So basically at this point, they had communicated about 30% of the design development and 30% of the price schedule development has complete. The goal is, again, to take this, through the 60%. As you can kind of see here are the major, items that have been, completed. As it relates to site analysis, some of the architectural, some of the structure. To date, none of the major equipment has been purchased. Again, most of this relates to the planning as well as the modeling for the design facility. The second piece, which a lot of times people forget, is the expense related to the cost of issuance or your cost of borrowing. So as I mentioned a few minutes ago, $8 million in total financing for the project. To date, that's cost about $223,000 in expenses for the issuance of the debt. Professional services, again, that's your fees for your bond counsel, your financial advisors, the other administrative expenses. A lot of these are required, by the state of Kansas, whether it's for registration fees or for filing fees with the Attorney General, the Treasurer, the Secretary of State. The largest item in here represents underneath administrative fees, the monies for assured guarantee. They were your bond insurer from the 21 bonds. The bonds were rated, so proportionately, portion of the 21 bonds, the rating agency fees are assessed. And then finally, the underwriting fees. And then the last or the biggest item represents DTC. That's the payoff of the temporary notes, the balance of the temporary notes when you issued the bonds. What's important is, again, against the bonds themselves that were issued, again, about $4 million. To date, you've paid about $311,000 in both principal and interest, with the most recent payment being on February the 1st. Just some observations. I think this is important. So kind of summarizing, what's the investment to date? So we talked about the $4.3 million in total expenditures, again, for the various planning and engineering work, the cost of issuance, the $311,000 in principal and interest, As well as, there is a commitment for the payment of the bonds. So about 4.8 million in the payment and the repayment of the bonds. So altogether that comes over 9.6 million. An item we were unable to quantify had to deal with the amount of staff time or the amount of your own labor that's being put into the project. Today, the staff does not track their time spent on various capital improvement projects or initiatives. It is a recommendation that we've cited is moving forward that initiatives like this or major capital project, there should be a way for them to be able to record their time against the project. But I think what's important from our observations here is, being able to track those times, the time, as well as, providing an updated cash flow. In fact, finance had indicated to us they had not seen an updated cash flow since late of 21 for this project. So again, from your investment to date, about 9.6 million. So any questions as it relates to the project itself and the spending that has occurred to date?
Commissioner Merkley?
I actually don't have a question, but I'm just getting notification that the YouTube for this meeting says it's waiting on the UG. So I don't know who can help with that, but I'll just put that out there and then I'll let Commissioner Bynum move on with her questions.
Thank you for letting us know we have a technical issue. Appreciate that. I need to go back to on my big packet that was from ED&F. It's page 14. And well, right here is fine. So I need to understand better than I do right now. CMIP projects expenses as of 12/31/22, you've got at 4.3, right? 4.3 million. And then you have
About $4 million for the project, 4 million in GO debt. So moving forward, you've paid 311,000 on principal and interest, and then the remainder of what's due is 4.8 million.
okay, and that's where I'm just getting stuck. And I see that you, in parentheses, you say August 2041. I just need help. I just can't get from a current spend of 4.3 to 9.6.
Okay. 4.3 was for the various contractors for HDR, Black and Veatch, UG Water Partners, again, for the planning work. The 311,000, that represents the principal and interest that you've already paid. Okay. So the 4.9 million represents everything else on the chart here it's in white. So the fact that you've already issued bonds for this project, and that represents the principal and interest outstanding on this bond issue.
Okay, so when you say 9.6, it's because we've issued the bonds.
Correct.
Okay. And you are factoring in over the life of those bonds, the principal and the interest.
Right.
Okay.
Interesting enough, like I said, 8.4 got in cash. You've spent, the 4.3, which means you have 3.6 million in the treasury today in the project as it relates to cash you have on hand for the project. As shown on this table, this was something that the commission had asked us to also be able to fact base for you. And it has to deal with the increases in the project. And again, this is on slide 26. As shown initially when the project was first part of the master plan, a very high level estimate was 4.3. In 2018, when Black and Veatch issued its kind of preliminary report, the estimate went to 70 million. Most recently, And in 21, when ESG put their estimate together, that increased to 80 million. And then most currently, based on the UG Water Partners estimate, that's gone up to $100 million.